Trump supporter and leader of the Brexit movement in Britain, Nigel Farage, accused of pushing anti-Semitic stereotypes, referring to the influence of the so-called non-existent Jewish lobby in American politics. A caller to his London radio program asked why Russia's involvement in the election is an issue. Yet nobody talks about Israel's involvement. Well, Farage answered by citing what he called the big influence of Israel in America, and then said this about the Jewish lobby in America.
Well, in terms of money and influence, yeah, they are a very powerful lobby. And Ahmed, actually, America's interfered in elections all over the world for decades. There's a slight sort of degree of hypocrisy about all of this. Ahmed, new caller from Leighton, I thank you. He makes the point that there are other very powerful foreign lobbies in the United States of America, and the Jewish lobby, with its links with the Israeli government, is one of those strong voices.
So I want to talk about this with CNN political commentators Peter Beinart, Alice Stewart, Angela Rye, and Ben Ferguson. So the caller shifted the subject to Israel, and Farage went even further. Is he saying, Peter, that Americans should be more worried about Jews than about Russian meddling?
Yeah, I think that the problem with the analogy there is pretty simple, which is that Russia is a foreign government. American Jews are citizens of the United States. So the American Jews should be involved in the political process, just as every other group of Americans should be involved in the political process. And there, to kind of compare a group of Americans to a foreign government seems to me to suggest that somehow American Jews are not legitimately citizens of the United States. And I think whether Farage meant that or not, that's kind of the way it comes across.
Angela, Nigel Farage is an ally and friend of President Trump. The two met at Trump Tower just days after Trump won in November of 2016. The president tweeted this. He said, "Many people would like to see Nigel Farage represent Great Britain as their ambassador to the United States. He would do a great job." Is there a problem here, you think?
I think there is a challenge, and the challenge is that Nigel Farage sounds very much like a lot of what we've heard, not just from Donald Trump, but from a number of people affiliated with Donald Trump. One of the things that Peter just said that I think is really important is that we encourage people in this country to get involved in lobbying the government, ensuring that the government is pushing forth policies that impact your communities in positive ways. I, for one, as a black woman in this country, think that we have a lot to learn from the way in which Jewish folks and Jewish communities in this country have ensured that their interests are heard. Whether we're talking about issues related to the Holocaust and ensuring that people understand that history, and to ensure that it never happens here and never happens again anywhere in the world, is very important, particularly when you think about the transatlantic slave trade and the impacts it's had on African American people. So I don't understand why they are othering Jewish people now, but we've certainly seen it before. We just saw it just the other day with the terrorist attack on Halloween.
So, Ben, months later, the president and Farage dined together again at the Trump International Hotel. Do you think that these comments by Farage, who, you know, the president has embraced, do you think it reflects in any way on the president or the administration?
I don't. I think it's pretty clear that this president has a very close relationship with the leadership in Israel, and a lot of his good friends and associates and people that work with him are Jewish. And I think it's pretty clear that he has a very strong relationship with the Jewish community, and his campaign had a lot of backing of a lot of Jewish individuals, not just in this country, but also, supporting the state of Israel. And he was talking as a friend of Israel. So I also think you got to put into context. Look, I do a radio show 3 hours a day. And when someone calls into your show, I think one of the things that Nigel was very clearly talking about was influence does give you, and money does give you influence in elections. Let's be honest. If you're an ally of the United States of America, like Israel is, they are going to want to have a very close relationship with whoever the next president of the United States of America is. They did not have a very close relationship with President Obama. There were a lot of people that were Jewish that wanted to be involved in this last election and supported Donald Trump. I think people are making more out of his statements than what's really there. I don't think this is as controversial as some are trying to make it out to be.
But isn't that different than a covert operation to influence an election?
Well, I don't think that he was going as far as talking about a covert operation. I do think his point was, you do have many people that are Jewish that are going to make sure that their voice is heard in Washington. We've seen that for decades. They're in the Middle East, where it's a very important issue then from their national security standpoint, being surrounded by Hamas and Hezbollah
Okay,
and
all right,
other
I get your
terrorist
point. I get
nations.
your point. I want Alice.
I just don't think it's that tough.
Go ahead, Alice.
And I think it's also a fine line to espouse thoughts or comments from one person to the candidate or the elected official all the time, and to directly link Donald Trump to these comments, I think is a mistake. And I think another thing, as Ben said, I listened to a pretty good portion of the hour-long show that he had, and most of it was on Russian meddling, and then this caller got him off down this rabbit hole with regard to Israel. I think he did make a mistake when he referred to the Israel influence in regard to the money and having money to influence American politics and calling it a Jewish lobby. I think that is a big mistake, because quite frankly, Jewish people in America are not the only ones in America that support Israel. Israel is our greatest ally in the Middle East, and many, many Americans support issues that will be beneficial to Israel. So I think that is important to keep in mind. But I think some of what he said was taken out of context in a larger scheme of the segment of a show. But I think it's important to notice, as Angela said, I think it's great when you can have someone that has a vested interest or a united interest, that they can really get together and influence politics.
Okay.
I think that any group should do the same.
I've got to get to the break, so stay with me, everyone. When we come back,